ancestral lands of the Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Soxhawtl, Duwamish, Stillaguamish, Tulalip, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land. Now, would you all please stand and join me in the flag salute? Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Unless there are any objections, the agenda will stand approved as published. There are no objections. The agenda is approved. Next up, we have 4 proclamations. Period. Okay. First proclamation is for Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas the safety and security of our communities are of paramount importance, we owe a debt of gratitude to those who dedicate their lives to protecting the public. And whereas peace officers play a vital role in maintaining peace, order, and justice in our society, often risking their own lives to safeguard the lives of others. And whereas Peace Officers Memorial Day is a day to honor and remember brave individuals who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, paying tribute to their courage, dedication, and selflessness. And whereas for officers who have been injured or fallen in the line of duty, their families and their legacies are forever changed by their loss. And whereas it is essential to recognize the sacrifices of peace officers and their families and to express our profound appreciation of their service and sacrifice. And whereas the city of Kenmore is proud of the exceptional presence, service, and contributions of the Kenmore police officers' service to the residents. Now, therefore, I, Nigel Herbig, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 15th, 2024 to be Peace Officers Memorial Day throughout the City of Kenmore. We urge all residents to join with the City Council in this observance, where we commemorate law enforcement past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their duties and responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to our beautiful and safe Kenmore. And here to accept that today is our own Chief of Police, Chief Brandon Moen. Chief Moen, do you want to say a few words?
Not at this place to speak, but thank you very much for the proclamation. I appreciate it. I'm happy to accept it on behalf of the 12 officers with the Kenmore Police Department, as well as King County Sheriff's Office. This past week was a very special one in that we celebrated each year the sacrifices that not only deputies, but police officers, troopers, all of the peace officers that are throughout the country that have made this ultimate sacrifice, and really most importantly, the families that they all leave behind. Last year in 2023, there were 138 line of duty deaths in this country. Thus far, there's been 59 in 2024. So we really want to honor those sacrifices that those individuals and their families have made. In particular, over the course of the history of the King County Sheriff's Office, there's been 18 line of duty deaths. And what's interesting is it was only a few years ago that I realized that one of them actually occurred here in Kenmore prior to incorporation in the early 50s. Deputy Norman Silkworth was killed in the early 50s during a shooting at the country club many years ago. So little known fact, well before we were a city, but nonetheless, we honor his sacrifice and the family that he leaves behind. So thank you very much for the proclamation. I appreciate it and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for your service, Chief. And Chief, did you want to get a photo really quickly because I need to hand this off to you anyway. So why don't we go take a quick photo with the Chief? All right, our next proclamation is for Kids to Parks Day. Whereas Kids to Parks Day is a national day of outdoor play celebrated annually on the third Saturday of May to empower kids and encourage families to get outdoors and visit local parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas Kids to Parks Day is intended to foster future outdoor enthusiasts and help develop the next generation of park stewards by engaging kids in memorable outdoor activities and experiences. And whereas Kids to Park Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and the outdoors. And whereas kids need outdoor activities, experiences to promote their physical health, mental well-being, creativity, and connection to the natural world. And whereas the city of Kenmore features spectacular local and state parks for families to enjoy, including Rhododendron Park, Log Boom Park, and Tlaquadis Park. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will recognize the importance of recreating responsibly while enjoying the benefits of the outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Nigel Herbig, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 18th, 2024 to be Kids to Parks Day throughout the City of Kenmore. We encourage all Kenmore residents, especially kids, to stay connected with the great outdoors. Next, we have our Pride Month proclamation. Excuse me. Whereas the Kenmore City Council acknowledges and celebrates the city's diverse population, understanding that the unique tapestry woven by our varied cultures, traditions, beliefs, and experiences is one of our most significant strengths. And whereas we assert and uphold the principle that every individual, regardless of their identity or background, deserves to live in an atmosphere of dignity, respect, and justice. We categorically condemn and will not tolerate any form of discrimination, violence, or hate, holding these acts as affronts to the values we cherish as a community. And whereas we acknowledge and appreciate the significant strides made by the LGBTQIA+ community in advocating for their rights and freedoms, the legalization of marriage equality, the affirmation of identity, and the freedom to love without restriction represent landmark victories, not just for the LGBTQIA+ community, but for the broader cause of human rights. And whereas we recognize with deep concern that the LGBTQIA+ community continues to face challenges such as harassment, intimidation, discrimination, and violence, we stand in solidarity with them and vow to fight these injustices. And whereas the city of, the city of Kenmore reaffirms its commitment to creating and maintaining an environment that is safe, inclusive, and welcoming to all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other characteristics. We pledge to continuously strive towards enhancing the inclusivity and acceptance within our city. And whereas Pride Month is a celebration of the progress, achievements, and resilience of the LGBTQIA+ community, this is a time to highlight and appreciate the numerous contributions made by this community and to unequivocally assert that LGBTQIA+ rights are human rights. Now, therefore, I, Nigel Herbig, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month throughout the City of Kenmore. We encourage all members of our community to continue to foster a culture of acceptance, love, and pride throughout Kenmore. And I do not believe we have somebody here to accept that right now. And then our final proclamation for the day. National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas, excuse me, public safety is one of the city's core values and greatest responsibilities to the community. And whereas the impact of gun violence is a pervasive issue that affects individuals, families, and communities across our nation, where no one is immune from this tragedy. And whereas it is imperative that we work together as a community to promote responsible gun ownership, enact sensible gun laws, and implement comprehensive strategies to prevent gun violence. And whereas National Gun Violence Awareness Day is a day to raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims. And whereas gun violence prevention advocates and organizations nationwide wear the color orange to honor survivors and victims and to amplify gun violence awareness. And whereas the Kenmore City Council are committed to reducing gun violence, fostering a safe community for all. Now, therefore, I, Nigel Herbig, Mayor of the City of Kenmore, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim June 7th, 2024 to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day throughout the City of Kenmore. We encourage our community to show their commitment to ending gun violence and honoring victims and survivors by wearing orange on that day. Mr. City Manager, where's the fun?
Well, to answer that question, we have a couple of guests, Sherry Baker and Eva Osuski-Crosdale. If you could come forward up to the podium and tell us what happened yesterday.
So Kenmore asks, where's the fun? Yes, yesterday, okay, thought that you can't hear me. Yesterday it was at Teocrates Park. So the Kenmore Waterfront Activities Center, and for those of you that may not be totally aware of what that is, also known as KWAC, is an umbrella over a number of hand-powered water sports organizations, Seattle Flying Dragon Boat Club, Huivao Puget Sound Outrigger Club, Kenmore Kayak and Surf Ski Club, and a sub-club that we're getting going. Anyway, this is an annual event, and thanks to amazing weather yesterday and the best volunteer team ever, some who weren't even involved in any of the clubs, came together, and we had probably well over 100 people come and go out on boats, outriggers, dragon boats, kayaks. It began with a kumu, which is a Hawaiian for teacher. And she came and gave what they call a talk story, which is a Hawaiian way, because they didn't originally have a written language, but it's a way they pass along their family history and way of life. So she graciously came. It was a last minute thing. She had done a blessing a couple weeks ago with a new racing outrigger in the pouring rain, and it was amazing. So that was pretty special. Then, as probably more special, we got to pay tribute to Carol Osuski, also referred to as Coach Carol, who basically is the reason that we have this park. He reached out to the landowner, the city purchased the property, and we have a tribute in the park, thanks to the city and to KWAC for going together and making this possible. So his daughter, Eva, was there along with one of her brothers, and that was incredibly special. One of his proteges, who spent hours and hours paddling with him, flew in for the event. Another one couldn't be present, but his words were read by his mother. And so that was incredible to be able to have that live on. So then it was get in the water. And like I say, there were probably, I would look over across on the gravel area where we had the outriggers and the dragon boats set up, and there were lines of people for hours. Some people arrived at 4:15 and they still got out on the water. So anyway, that's the fun. You're welcome to come and join and go out paddling at any one of the clubs. Kenmore Waterfront Activities Center has a website that has all the information. But I'd like to have Eva say a few words.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the tribute to my late father, Karol Osuski, and we were just beyond surprised and honored to have this sort of a tribute for him. So thank you to the city of Kenmore for the commemorative rock and for the ceremony yesterday. It really meant the world to our family. So thanks.
Anastasia, could you go back to the slide that showed the young family backpacking in the mountains? Yeah, there are that picture on the left. So this picture was taken in the 1980s when Carroll and his family were escaping from the Soviet Union. And they literally did the Von Trapp family singers thing. And they backpacked across the mountains into freedom. And the little girl right there who is that, Eva? Yeah. And then your mom took the photo, right? Yeah, Carroll was a true patriot. He loved our country. And just was really a great honor to know him. And it is true, we wouldn't have that park without him. He's the one that had the idea to purchase it. He's the one that reached out to the property owner, negotiated it on behalf of the city. So that he really made that possible, and we're so grateful for him. And we're grateful for you. And Eva, you're a Kenmore resident, right? All right, that's cool. So thank you very much. Awesome, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is public comments. I want to welcome folks to the council's meeting. Please address your comments to the mayor and the council. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. If there are more than 20 speakers, time will be reduced down to 2 minutes per speaker. The clerk will call your name when it is your turn. Please state your name and city of residence to keep within the allotted time. To make every person feel welcome and safe here, please refrain from booing, clapping, heckling, yelling, or other interruptions. The meeting is being recorded for transparency. Thank you for being here and for sharing your input respectfully. Madam Clerk.
Hi there.
Thank you, Mayor. At this point, we have 4 guests signed up to speak on site and no guests signed up online. Patrick O'Brien, Elizabeth Mooney, Stacy Valenzuela, and Jim Myers, please.
Hi there, Pat O'Brien, Kenmore, Washington. First, I'd like to address the boat house issue. Deborah, you should like to hear this one. I worked at the Kenmore, not the Kenmore, but the Green Lake Boathouse for 2 summers. And that was always put out as a concession by the city of Seattle, and you would bid on it every 2 years. And if your bid was good, then you got access to the boats, the boathouse, the whole thing, and you split the money or you paid a fee to the city. And that's what we should be doing with our boathouse. To just have it out of pocket is not feasible. So follow the example of Seattle. Second is I find that I have a lack of time to redress and address the issues that you folks seem to bring up all the time. So under the First Amendment, I have a right to address my government. I think you need to make some time, all the city council people, to meet with citizens in the city and not just limit this to 3 minutes, because I have documentation that literally has to do with Lake Point, and it would take at least 2 hours, and you'd have to read it to get the gist of what the engineers, attorneys, everybody has said. In 3 minutes, we'll never cut that. Your understanding, you're based on whatever staff tells you, and that is not adequate. They're biased. They've proven it. And the way they've proved it is by what happened at the good old Kenmore maintenance facility. I have an affidavit stating that the seller, the owner of the old fire station, after it was reconditioned, was indeed willing to sell to the city. And somebody at City Hall has lied to the city council about its availability. And such, we have spent more than $20 to $30 million on a facility that's misplaced and 10 times more expensive than it would cost us to acquire that fire station and keep everything within the area. And I am demanding an inquiry into this, and I want to have people testify and watch the Zoom meetings of staff lying, bold-faced lying as to its availability and the availability of other places. Then as far as the dredging goes, we can push the dredging back. There's no rush on that. They've changed all sorts of things about it. And they lied in their last statement about reused asphalt and concrete was indeed transported to the docks there, and they lied about that. So the city needs to be the final arbiter of whether or not that issuance of non-significance is relevant and whether or not you would approve it or not. Thank you.
Ms. Mooney?
Hi, Elizabeth Mooney, City of Kenmore. I'm coming here to talk about the Glacier Northwest dredging permit request that the city received last June, I believe. And my husband and I met with city staff, and thank you for that. And we wrote letters about our concerns, and there've been voluntary meetings from Glacier Northwest. But I think the main problem from my point of view is that since I've been living in Kenmore for decades, I would like to emphasize bringing back salmon to our shoreline and having healthy water and air. And what Glacier Northwest and the other and Heidelberg materials represent is heavy industry at our shoreline. And I think that that may be inconsistent with what our love where we live community wants our vision to be. So I am here to ask you, council, since as of Friday, I heard, sadly for me, that the city is going to issue a mitigated determination of non-significance, which is, I think, a step in the right direction, but I don't necessarily think it's enough because partly our community doesn't know much about the toxins that are down at our shoreline. And we need to know more, and there isn't testing that's going to be done before they would be potentially allowed to dredge, which would be in order to bring in barges with more gravel to make more concrete and to sell to Heidelberg materials for more asphalt emissions. All of that is inconsistent, I think, with what we want to live in from this point forward. So what I'm asking is that apparently there's several ways that you can deal with this. And I believe that there's a type 5 decision that the council could make a decision about this instead of relying solely on our wonderful staff. So I would like you to consider putting off what Samantha Loyak and Riley are planning to send off, I think pretty soon, and potentially have Glacier dredging without knowing what the toxins are. They're planning to take it to Upland, but put it off, make a decision, and let the community know how significant this is so that they can talk to you and we can get this done this summer, talk about it, instead of having them start dredging for bigger barges, more gravel, more heavy industry commerce, and instead get our community educated about what the toxins are and have them and you have big conversations about this matter of importance about dredging in an area that potentially has toxins like dioxins and PCBs and lead and arsenic.
Thank you. Ms. Valenzuela, Jim Myers, and Tracy Brzezinski.
Stacy Valenzuela, Kenmore. Another part of our concerns is the growing fees and taxes. Council agreed that they would pass on discounts to our lowest residents for utility tax, garbage, car registration fees. These are a huge burden on our seniors and those with disabilities on fixed incomes, especially in the next few months as we're facing high inflated rent increases. I waited till I got my registration, and yes, there is no discount for seniors. Garbage, there is no discount for seniors. Water, it's $15 a month, and PSC promises of up to 45%. The highest we've seen is 10%. So no to any more taxes or levies. You're hurting our seniors on fixed income and our lowest incomes the most. In regards to anything else, it just seems like you're moving at a high speed and taking up all this wasted money for public works and Lake Point with excuses of that there's no funding for things that the residents want. How is that fair? We need the testing for the toxic soil and water over at the Lake Point area, but we don't want to buy it to build on it. And we should be going after the owner currently to get federal funding for him to do the remediation, not for Kenmore when we're strapped for funds. I would like to see the city move that priority instead of an afterthought to just appease the residents. Those that do not live here are just hearing some of the staff interpretations, and they're not hearing from all the residents. This is a huge difference. And we come to you time and time again and tell you what the constituents want, what the will of the people is, but we're ignored too often. I hope you will take this into consideration and do the right thing. We really need you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. Myers, go on.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jim Myers. I'm a resident of Kenmore. And I guess never has 800 cubic yards of gravel drawn so much attention in this town. But it is perhaps more a symptom of people's frustration, perhaps, of trying to understand what the future is for Lake Point, for our shorelines, for our future parks. And it manifests itself in where can people act? Even with my own wife, we have some disagreements about dredging gravel, but we do agree that the industrial use of our shoreline is something we need to address. And I think people, and I know that because we've been given the time to talk to staff and to city council members about different visions. And I think, again, it's nice to go and ask people at these public forums, but I think to give the public something more concrete, a more definitive vision about the ways that it can go, I think that would be very useful. And I think that would assuage some of the angst, because we do have an industrial shoreline and it has a legacy. And forgive me, but John McMaster and his shingle mill burned down, and they burn a lot of wood, and that's where dioxins come from when you burn wood. And so his legacy might be something other than just being one of our founders. These are all forever chemicals, and there have been a lot of studies, and we know that they're out there, and we need to understand what the plan is to deal with them. How do we contain them? We can't dredge out an entire harbor, but we can contain them, and we can also be sure that the public is assured that when they swim or recreate, that they have a safe place to do it. That when Elizabeth and I, we take our grandkids down to the beach, we want to go out there and have fun, and that's how we want it to be. And yes, and I know there are plans, and I think as is possible to make those plans public would do a great deal to help public confidence in that future vision. Thank you.
Tracy Bonashinsky, Kenmore. Good evening, council. It is so good to see you all. I'm here tonight to express mixed feelings about the potential ballot measures before you to address operational funding needs. Regarding a public safety levy lift ballot measure for police costs, I wish we could have a more robust community conversation about public safety before voters need to decide whether or not to fund the increased police costs in front of us through a levy lift. Public safety is critical and something I value highly, and therefore I would love to talk more about what it looks like in practice and whether we are on the best, most equitable path for ensuring the well-being and protection of everyone in our community. Though we are told every day how polarized this country currently is, many police and communities agree that police are asked to do too much and that real community needs are going unmet. Given this and the escalating costs of our contract with King County for police services, the conversation I would love to have is how we can build a public safety system that fosters trust and works for everyone instead of just staying the course. Including the Regional Crisis Response Program and the proposed levy lit is a good step, and I wonder if we can do more. The City of Olympia underwent a community-led examination of their public safety system in 2021 and could provide some ideas for our own community conversation if we were to have it. We might even be able to find some cost savings were we to go down that path. Regarding the park maintenance costs and municipal parks district levy, I once heard Jennifer Gordon talk about public works as one of the most invisible, underappreciated ways we care for one another as a community. That is how I remember it anyway, with apologies to Jennifer if I remember wrong. In any event, the idea that caring for our public infrastructure, including our parks, is caring for one another resonates with me. We all benefit from our parks and green spaces, but it is deeply unsexy to pay to maintain them compared to building shiny new things. I know how dedicated our public works crew is. They are fantastic partners to Snow King Watershed Council in our volunteer-led restoration at both Twahadis and Willis Swamp Creek Parks, and they deserve orders of magnitude more resources to do their important work than we have allowed them. If the proposed levy were simply to make them whole in funding parks maintenance, I likely wouldn't have such mixed feelings about it. However, tying an ask for park maintenance funds to a potential future park project at Lake Point makes me feel uneasy. I have not seen a vision for Lake Point that I am comfortable endorsing in whole, even in such an indirect way as supporting municipal parks district. I'm invested in what happens at Lake Point for salmon recovery, and I'm encouraged that the city shares that concern. At the same time, I think we have more conversation and due diligence ahead of us before we can be confident that we are doing what's best for salmon at Lake Point. The TLDR for me is that I think we need more time on both of the potential ballot measures to determine if they are the right ones for our community at this time, and even if they are the right conversations to be having. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak before you tonight and for your consideration. And thank you for your ongoing service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no additional guests wishing to speak.
All right, thank you so much to everybody who came and spoke. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. The chair to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda stands approved unanimously. Next, we have some presentations. First, we are going to be introducing new staff. We have Senior Permit Coordinator Andy Torres, Accountant Julie Yinger, and Project Manager Chuck Warwick.
And while we transition, Mayor Herbig, would you confirm who seconded the previous motion, please?
It was Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, council. It's my pleasure to introduce Andy Torres, our Senior Permit Coordinator. Andy comes to us from California with over 10 years permitting experience, and he has been doing an excellent job since, when was your first day? Since February. So welcome, Andy. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure so far since I've been here, and I definitely look forward to the continued growth and learning in this position.
Your microphone's not on.
There we go.
Good evening, Council. I am so excited to introduce to you Julie Yinger. And Julie has vast accounting experience in many different organizations. She did a small stint at Bothell even. And so she started last Monday. It's been all of a week and she has totally hit the ground running. I think you can see the sweat on her. She's been working very, very hard and we are just so excited to have her. So go ahead, Julie.
Do you turn on your microphone? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Julie Yinger, and I'm really excited to be here and thank you for the opportunity to work here. And I hope to bring my experience and learn as much as I can about the city of Kenmore. And
Welcome.
thank you.
All right, I'd like to introduce Chuck Warwick. He's our new project manager for the Public Works Operations Center. Super excited. Chuck comes with years and years of experience in building buildings, and that's really what we're looking for. So he's worked in private, he's worked in public, and we are thrilled to have him. Chuck?
Thank you. My hair was actually black when I started in the construction industry. I am super excited about being here in Kenmore, and thank you and the city of Kenmore for giving me this opportunity to lead the construction on the new public works building. I am committed to it and looking forward to just having one outstanding project. Thank you again.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you.
On behalf of the council, I want to just say thank you to Andy and Julie and Chuck for coming to Kenmore, choosing Kenmore, and I think you're going to like it here. We have some great folks working here, so thank you. Next up, it's kind of the opposite of that. It's a little bittersweet. We're going to recognize outgoing Parks Project Manager Moen Kalaisi. And excuse me if I have to read from some notes here. So tonight we're recognizing Moen Kalaisi for her work and service to the city of Kenmore over the last 7 years. Moen was hired here in 2017 and immediately became involved working with the community on refining the concept plans for park improvements at Logboom Park and Tlaquadees Park. After the Walkways and Waterways bond measure passed, she guided both of these parks projects through the complexities of permitting and construction, no small thing. The community celebrated with ribbon cuttings at both parks. The improvements created 2 signature parks for the community to enjoy and experience access to Lake Washington and the Sammamish River, as well as enjoy the habitat restoration and all of the benefits to wildlife. Both parks are well loved by the Kenmore community. And we appreciate all of your hard work and dedication that led to those successes. Maureen also successfully applied and received several grants from the state and King County to support our park project funding. She worked with the Kenmore Historical Society and local artists to ensure that unique artwork was incorporated into park improvements at Logboom Park, Rhododendron Park, and Tlaquadees Park. The addition of artwork adds to the unique park experience at all of the parks. And she worked with the community to update the Parks Recreation and Open Space Plan, which is the planning document that identifies community needs and identifies projects to meet that need. So thank you, Maureen. We really appreciate all of your service to the city of Kenmore and wish you all the best.
Maureen, turn on your mic. There you are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. It's been a blessing to be here. I was so excited if you had watched my video when I came in front of you guys to be introduced. I just was over just joyed to be here. I've enjoyed my entire 7 years completely from beginning to end. It's been a pleasure working with you and the staff, Rob, Debbie, Jennifer, Quinn, Janet, and the crew at the city manager's office, just public works. It's just been a great experience. And what I am so grateful for is that the citizens of Kenmore have gotten the access to the water that they deserve. And I was just so honored to be part of that experience. So thank you guys for acknowledging me in that, but what I'm so proud of is that there is truly a legacy for this community, and I'm grateful to have been part of it.
A photo, if that's okay. So if the council join us. One last presentation for the evening before we go to the business agenda, the Kenmore Business Directory demonstration presented by Deputy City Manager Stephanie Lukash, Communications and Tourism Manager Lauren Homiak, and Management Analyst Janet Quinn.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, we're excited to show you tonight a preview of the new business directory. And as Janet gets it set up, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of background. So for the last couple of years, every January, the Kenmore Business Alliance has met and had a strategic planning session. And in fact, Councilmember Sasson was at this year's session when the group voted on a new kiosk. But last year's voting, the group voted to use some of the business registration dollars that the city collects to create a new business directory. And I think we can all agree the current business directory is very outdated. It's not very robust, and it was time to update it. And so we're really thrilled to share with you. We've been working with Scott Bothell, a consultant, over the last year plus, and we are now ready to unveil this. And so we thought we'd give you a quick demo, and then we're looking forward to working with all of our businesses to get them into the new directory. So I'll turn it over to Janet.
We'll wait for it to get up on the screen.
All right, while they're working on getting it set up, I'll just share that part of what we were looking for with the new business directory was to make this a lot more interactive. So to give our businesses an opportunity to share updated photos and logos and information about their businesses. And you'll see the categories that we came up with, and the look and feel of it is much different than you will see on the city's website. So I think we're about ready to show it. And I'll just say also, when these projects are selected by the Kenmore Business Alliance, it's about a voting process. And we take that really seriously, that we really want to deliver on the projects and take the time to do them well. And so these projects don't happen quickly. As you can see, this was from January of last year that the KBA voted on this, and we've been working on it for a long time to get it right and to be thorough and think about the right level of information and make it user-friendly for our businesses. So I think we're ready now to show it to you.
There we go. And you'll see that it's still a work in progress. So I'll just briefly take you through it. The home page of the directory. Not controlling. Okay, will you scroll up from the, yeah, the landing page has that great picture of the kayaking, but it also has the categories, and at the bottom of the page, there is a space for community events. Business owners can load events that are upcoming to that area. one of the restrictions for currently promoting businesses is that if they're not free events to the community, we really don't promote them unless they're a sponsor for a particular event. This way they can promote their own events on this calendar and on this page. And it's just a great way of supporting all of our businesses and giving them the opportunity to say who they are and what they do and what they have to offer for our community. So when we first envisioned this site, we envisioned it as a tourism website, and we built it that way from the beginning. So what we have now is the business directory, but eventually that will morph into a real true tourism directory as well. So you can see there are a number of ways that you can enter into the categories. You can choose from the top, or you can click on the squares, but each category has a list of businesses. It's self-selecting for the most part, and we're still working on getting businesses to own their own listings so that they can provide the edits that they want. And turns out most of them are busy doing business and not really having a lot of capacity to do this part of it. So we're working really hard to help them in any way that we can to get them listed in the directory. We are, as you can see, the categories under Find Community. We will be also reaching out to churches. That's a great place that people can go to find community. So that'll be a place to house them. I think we've heard from churches that they would like to be part of the community as well. And this is a great way to make that happen. Under the Find Services, that's our biggest category. That's just a broad range of services. And if you scroll down on the left-hand side, you can see that within each category, you can select further to refine your search to a specific area that you want to find. So it is, as I said, self-selecting. So if people have chosen professional as one of the categories that they want to be listed in, that's why they show up in there. And you can see there's a number of professional. Scroll through, it's really fun to see what different businesses are in the city that I had no idea were here before I started working on this project. So we're working also to get people to put images on there, because as you can see in the directory, it displays much more beautifully when there is a thumbnail image for the business. Lauren, if you will scroll up a little bit. Oh, this works too. So each of the listings, you can either go directly to their website by clicking on the website green lettering. Sorry, go back one page, Lauren. So let's take Evenfall as an example. And in the green where it says website, you can click on that. That takes you directly to the website. And you can bypass any of the internal directory listing. Or you can go and view the listing as we have it listed in the directory and go to their website from there. If they are a home-based business, they can choose to hide the map. The map will display unless they opt to display it. So this is a home-based business that doesn't want their address displayed, and that's one of the options. They can also choose to hide their phone or their email as they choose. So there are really a lot of flexible options for this. Back out to the categories. I just want to show you that eventually that it's also going to be selectable by the type of ownership. So if it's a woman owned business or BIPOC owned, or there's a list of options that people can choose, as many as apply. So it's really a great opportunity for people to be able to search to support the type of business that they want to. The requirement for being in the directory is to have a Kenmore business registration. That's what funds this project. And we had a discussion within the KBA meeting whether or not that would be businesses that are located in the city or businesses serving the city, which is a surprisingly robust discussion. because there are people like real estate agents, lawyers that have offices external to the city, but they still live in or serve the Kenmore community. And we decided to just try it. We'll let them be in there as long as they have a Kenmore registration, city registration. So anyway, we encourage you to explore. One of the features that we are working on is the news category. There's nothing in it right now. That'll be blog posts eventually. And we want to invite you to write about your favorite place in Kenmore and submit it to Lauren as our new tourism manager. And the more we use this function, the higher the more we will be visible in a Google search as well. So just there are lots of places. I know you all love places in Kenmore, and we would love to hear about that and feature you in the news section. The other categories are self-explanatory, but please take a look at it and know that it's a work in progress, and we're working with businesses every day, basically. So let us know what you think, but thanks for letting us display it.
Of course. You up for some questions or comments?
Oh,
or-
of course.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Culver.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. This rocks. Awesome. Love the, I'm getting some national park energy from the Find More Kenmore logo, so that's cool. Yeah, happy to contribute favorite spots, help with the search engine optimization. This rocks. Well done.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is
bet.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
It's been such a fun project to work on, working with businesses and making this look so good. So
no, it's gorgeous.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our business agenda. Item A, comprehensive plan economic development element presented by Community Development Director Debbie Bent and Principal Planner Todd Hall. This is for discussion and review.
Good evening, Council. So this evening we are continuing discussion of the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. In March, the Planning Commission gave you the recommendation and you provided some questions and comments. And we have presented for you in the agenda packet a revised draft element and shown how staff has responded to your comments. So I guess we're here tonight to see if if the revised draft sufficiently addressed your comments and you are ready to move this forward. Again, as this is only one element of several elements we'll be bringing forward, adoption would be at the end of the year by ordinance. So we can either walk through the comments or if we can do it by exception. So I guess let's start with, are there any comments on the revised draft?
Any questions? Councilmember Shrubnik?
Are we going through each section though, or, I mean, I have an overarching comment. I think I emailed as well and from last time as well, and I mean, my comment is, or question is, is there a way to more clearly articulate the relationship between this and the economic development strategy? I think that's what it's called, which was adopted a few years ago. And that had, 6 aims. This element seems to only have one goal, which seems a little odd, but it's just not clear. And I know, Todd, you did it. You tried to kind of highlight how things are represented, but I just feel like, from the public perspective, you've got this economic development plan and you've got an element, and I mean, it would, take some energy on the part of the public to try to understand the relationship. And I just don't know, is there a way to make that clearer?
And first of all, in response, the economic development element are the very broad policy goals. The strategy is an implementation, so they don't have to repeat word for word. It's kind of, there are several examples like that in the comprehensive plan. The climate action element is broad. Then you have the climate action plan, which goes into more details and provides strategies in more detail on implementation. We have the same thing in the housing element, again, with more detail provided in the affordable housing strategy. So this is very similar in that regard, in that the goals are broad. The economic development strategy is the implementation piece. And when and how that is updated, it can be, but it doesn't reflect word for word or goal for goal within each. So that is how the two are related. And Todd then went through the comprehensive plan economic development element and highlighted that where that overlap is, so that they do kind of talk to each other, but I don't think it would make sense to repeat the goals directly from the strategy in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just, a follow-on thought is, if the strategy is essentially the implementation plan, which I understand is sort of like the climate action plan, I guess I'd want to somehow understand how the element is conceptually covering all the things from a policy perspective that we'd want to do in the plan. So it's hard for me to track the relationship to feel assured that we have the policy framework to do the plan. It was a little clearer with housing and with climate.
Any other overarching questions before maybe we go through some of the changes that were made from our March meeting? Okay. You want to go through the updates that were made since we last looked at this in March?
Yeah, and I'll actually just go through in the agenda, Bill, you'll notice the kind of matrix that we've noted, on specific comments made by council members. So the first one, Councilmember Culver, you requested, can the city document which businesses provide living wage jobs? Can the city document the number of businesses by NAICS code? And I believe I responded to you, and I appreciate the response back on some additional thoughts and suggestions. It didn't seem like there was any necessary actions at this point, but we're definitely taking everything and anything into consideration. And in terms of future work product, I think this is something that we could seriously look at, especially given the fact that the city council has boosted economic development significantly from where it previously was. I believe in the 2024, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think it was down at the bottom or near the bottom. And so now it's shifted up maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 spots. And so clearly the council has re-emphasized or emphasized economic development higher. And so whether or not we, community development or potentially city managers or whatnot, we decide to go a deeper dive into this. This is something that we'll definitely consider and exploring. Councilmember Srebnick, thank you again for your continued comments and on ways that we can potentially address these. Hopefully, Debbie and I have kind of expressed that, but we're more than happy to kind of adjust things as we need to, knowing that we do have a lot of time between now and when the actual adoption of this element is. Just like every other element, these are going to be packaged towards the end of the year for final adoption. So you're not making any action this evening. We're here to take more comments and feedback, and we can make those adjustments as needed. And then once we bring those back later at the end of this year, we can bring those forward again. Let's see. Councilmember Srebnick, you also mentioned about Kenmore Air. I think we adequately addressed that one, if I'm not mistaken. And that was just kind of a nomenclature. I think, Kenmore's Air Harbor versus Kenmore Air. And so hopefully we're able to address that one. Councilmember Lutzis, on page 4F3 under countywide planning policies, there's mention about job training, policy ED 7.2 on green jobs. Should there be a broader discussion on actionable strategy around job training? And I mentioned that climate action has some mention about encouraging green jobs. Collaboration between climate action and economic development efforts may allow for future strategies which lead to greater growth in the green jobs sector. So if council would like to see a little bit more clear language in here, or if it's a matter of tying those two elements together and a little bit better, definitely understand and appreciate the comments on that. So we know that there's a lot of overlap between many of our elements, and you can appreciate that being a former planning commissioner. We were actually just talking about that last week with the natural environment element, which will be coming to you soon. And that one in itself literally touches just about every single element in comprehensive plan. So this one being no exception. And moving on, Councilmember or Mayor Herbig on page 4F20 under strengths, recognize the Burke-Gilman Trail. Also BRT noted, we included that now in the new draft. Councilmember Sasson, Black Coffee Northwest has training model for community engagement. Bastyr University is also essentially job training. How can the city partner with local businesses? And staff suggested connecting with Kenmore Business Alliance. And there's other potential opportunities, but I believe that's one that was mentioned either by Debbie or myself. I can't remember, but one of us did. Councilmember Culver, Lake Point section is where we could talk more about the background and previous lessons learned, also business incubator lessons learned. Staff noted that Lake Point is an ongoing discussion, and it's only mentioned generally in the economic development element. The business incubator, as Debbie mentioned, it was a past effort and is not likely going to be pursued in the near future. However, that could change depending on council priorities and direction, but that's currently kind of where things lie with that. Councilmember Deputy Mayor O'Kane, having skills to perform the work is very important. Need to expand the breadth of economic development. Definitely note that and the importance of that. Councilmember Marshall, environmental emphasis is very important for economic development. As I just mentioned, all of our elements definitely cross over between each other. And so we want to make sure that we adequately address that. If there is something that is missing in any particular section, we're more than happy to kind of help bridge that a little bit better. But, we definitely want to make sure that economic development and the environment are addressed. And that was kind of what Councilmember Lutzis was saying in terms of green jobs and whatnot. So those are the comments that we received at the last meeting. So Debbie and I welcome any additional ones on this new draft that we've included in your packet this evening, if you have any additional ones that you'd like to make tonight.
Councilor Lutzis.
Thank you for pointing that out about the green jobs, and I think that's great. And I'm glad that we call that out specifically. I think what I had in mind was something a little more general and broad, rather than, strictly limiting job growth, development, and preparation to specifically and exclusively green jobs in that sector. I'm thinking of, at least when it comes to younger folks, providing them opportunities and things, and it might not just be in green jobs. I guess what I had in mind was something more along the lines of under 1 point, or actually economic development, what is that, goal or objective 1, which I guess would be something new like 1.11. Something that reads more along the lines of just more generally support opportunities and partnerships that prepare residents, such as occupational rehabilitation, training, internships, work study, and other efforts. And in that way, I think that's more encompassing and can be applied. I'm happy to send it to you as well. I have it typed up if you'd like. Yeah, that's just what I was thinking, and maybe that could be 1.11.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, it looks like you successfully integrated all of our feedback from March, because my colleagues seem satisfied. So thank you very much for all of the work that went into that. When will we'll be seeing this at the end of the year along with?
Correct. So the comment from Councilmember Lutz is if there's no objection, we can incorporate that language, and then we'll bring it back at the end of the year as a package with the rest of the elements.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, North Shore School District Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Rezone, presented by Community Development Director Debbie Bent and Principal Todd Hall. I like how you guys put these next to each other so you don't have to move. That's planning.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So we do have a small PowerPoint. So while the clerk is getting that ready, this is a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezone request. So they're kind of packaged together. And the request is to change the land use map in the comprehensive plan, and we would then change the zoning map to kind of match. And that would be to change it to public facilities. It's now residentially zoned. So look at that, perfect timing. So I will let Todd step through these few slides. Thank you.
Well, I will handle this one, as Debbie mentioned, and I'm familiar with this one, being a former North Shore School District employee, and in fact, my replacement is here this evening, William Tribble, and he's here if you have any specific additional questions here. I'm not asking him to come up, but he is here this evening to address any additional issues or concerns you might have. So as Debbie mentioned, this one is the comp plan amendment and rezone for the North Shore School District, specifically for the Inglemore High School site. So I'll give a brief discussion on the property itself, comp plan amendment rezone process, what that means, the amendment decision criteria that's spelled out in the Kenmore Municipal Code, and then a little bit about the Planning Commission and City Council process, and then next steps. So this particular property is located at 15226 Simons Road. This was a former single-family residence, which has now since been demolished. It is right on that southern or southwestern border, and it was purchased by North Shore in 2023. And really the purpose of this is to accommodate for future project area for the Inglemore High School rebuild, which I know the community and council is enormously excited about. And so this piece will be a critical part of the overall rebuild project. So this map, conceptual plan only, I just want to preface that. And this may or may not have changed since this was initially given to us as an application, but don't concern yourself with the building itself, just in terms of the context and where this particular parcel is with relationship to the entirety of the Inglemore High School site. So this, again, this parcel is located at the southwest corner of the site, and it really is just a small sliver of this. And they don't have it specifically spelled out in intent what they want to do with it, but the two options potentially are for temporary space during the construction process, meaning that they would put some modular units or some sort of structures that would accommodate students during this rebuild. As everybody knows, doing a rebuild product or process, regardless whether it's Kenmore Middle School, whether it's Kenmore Elementary, and in this case, a much larger Inglemore High School site, it's going to take a lot of coordination and effort. And so with this, one of their options is to have a modular potential site off to the side, or after the project is done, this could accommodate future parking for students and or staff. So that's really the intent of the purchase and incorporation of this parcel. So as Debbie briefly mentioned before we got the presentation up, this is really to change the land use designation, which currently on our maps show it being as a low density residential. And we would change that to be consistent with the Inglemore High School site, which is a public-private facilities zone. And then, or in land use designation. And likely, similarly, the rezone would be concurrent with this process, and we're changing the zoning designation on the official zoning map to R4, or from R4 to PSP, public, semi-public. So these two maps, the comp plan map and the zoning map, are just essentially mirrors of each other. Just about every jurisdiction in the state of Washington has a map, and these are usually like for like. And so we need to do both the comp plan amendment and the rezone. I call it a concurrent rezone at the same time. And that's why we're doing these in a package. So this slide basically shows you from beginning to end kind of how this process works. So we take in the application from the applicant. This was done at the beginning of the year, if you recall, as part of that overall docket process that the council approved. This was one of those items that was included in it, along with all the comp plan amendments that the Planning Commission is looking at. So we took that application in at the beginning of the year. City reviewed that. The notice of application went out. The SEPA determination went out. That process has all been completed. The Planning Commission reviewed it not too long ago. They made their recommendation, and they had a public hearing, and there was no public comments on the amendment, and they made the recommendation to bring it to City Council for your review and consideration. And then City Council review and final adoption, just like every other item on our docket, will be considered and approved by you at the end of this year. So this is just a little brief about the amendment decision and criteria in KMC 1920-090. And the three are listed on your screen. So first, proposed amendment is consistent with the Growth Management Act and countywide planning policies. It must be, the proposed amendment eliminates an inconsistency or doesn't create any inconsistency with comp plan. And then lastly, proposed amendment meets at least one of the following criteria, and A, B, and C are listed on there for you. And then additional review criteria for site-specific amendments, because this one is a site-specific. It's not a element, which all the other ones are. It has to be consistent with the policies, objectives, goals, and comp plan, CPPs, and GMA. The subject property is suitable for development in conformance with the standards under the classification being proposed. In this case, it meets that test because it isn't being used for a public purpose, that being Inglemore High School. The proposed amendment is compatible with adjacent nearby existing permitted land uses. Again, that meets the intent because of the school property or Inglemore High School property. The proposed amendment is compatible with surrounding development. Yes, meets that intent. And then lastly, on 5, proposed amendment meets the zoning map decision criteria listed in those 2 sections of KMC. And I just wanted to note that number 5 is not applicable because this is a type 5 council decision. So there are cases when these would go to a hearing examiner, but because this is a comp plan and a rezone together, the action is going to be done by council, and that's spelled out in code. And then in terms of the process, so Planning Commission, like I said, they reviewed this similar to all of our other comp plan amendments. They reviewed, discussed, and then held a public hearing. That was done in April, and they made a recommendation to the City Council to review. And then tonight we're here before you to give that presentation. We can't, or at the discretion of the City Council, you can hold additional public hearing if necessary. And then we'll bring an ordinance to approve this amendment in the fall with the remainder of the 2024 docket. And that brings to my next steps, that being a final decision by council at the end. So there's no official action needed by council tonight. It's just really acknowledging that you understand the action before you, and then move that forward in terms of the package along with all the other elements at the end of this year. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Questions, Councilmember Marshall?
Though private is in the label for the zone, there's no contemplation that it's going to be anything private. This is for public use for Engelmore High School, this North Shore School District.
Correct. Yeah, that's how I spelled this out, is it goes from strictly a residential private use. It was private. The house has been demolished. This change will make it in the same zone and will be incorporated as part of Engelmore High School. So I would imagine at some point, they don't have to, but they could come in for a boundary line adjustment or a lot line elimination if they wish, and that would absorb that property in the overall property of Engelmore High School. So, yeah. Yep.
Councilmember Sassen?
Just two quick comments. I drive by this site every day, walk by the site, it's in my neighborhood. So first, I just want to make a comment from a DEIA lens, making sure that it's not in our jurisdiction, but my hope is that North Shore paid that family appropriately for that land. And then the second lens I just want to look through is the climate action lens. There are no, to my eye, significant trees on that lot, but it is quite sloped. And so I imagine there's going to need to be some runoff mitigation. And really I just wanted to look at that property through those two lenses in a public way. That's all. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? All right.
If I may just
Yes,
really
of
briefly,
course.
just address Councilmember Sassen, your comments are well taken. There will be a separate application for the actual construction of the site. So this action specifically is regarding the map change and zoning change, but 100% the district knows and will be required to address any environmental challenges or steep slopes and all that as they develop this site, and the application that will be reviewed by our development services department. Yeah.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Last item on our business agenda, potential 2024 ballot measures to address operational funding needs, Metropolitan Park District ballot measure for parks maintenance, or a public safety levy lid lift ballot measure for police costs, presented by Deputy City Manager Stephanie Lukash, Finance and Administration Director Melinda Merrill, Community Development Director Debbie Bent, and Public Works Operation Director Jennifer Gordon. Do we need to take a quick break? No? Okay, super.
Driving.
Well, staff are excited to be here tonight to give a presentation about 2024 ballot measures and options to address operational funding needs. So why are we here this evening? Well, it's to receive direction from council on if and how to proceed with a potential ballot measure in 2024 to help address the city's operational funding needs. And as you know, the council tasked the task force to look at financial sustainability and bring back measures on how to address financial stability going forward. And the task force presented their findings to you May 6th. And at that same meeting, we also presented you options on bond measure, and you received feedback on the Love Where You Live project. So the task force recommended 2 future ballot measures. One for creation of a Metropolitan Park District to help offset impacts to the general fund for ongoing parks maintenance. And secondly, for a levy lid lift to address public safety. And that was to specifically address the rise in police costs. So staff have worked to kind of create options for you and to illustrate what putting one of these ballot measures would do to relieve that pressure on the general fund. We feel that we've given you enough information so that you can provide direction this evening on whether to place either one of these measures on the ballot in November. And we really need that direction tonight. But what we are looking for is direction from a united, strong majority council to put a measure on the ballot. If there is not that, then staff would not recommend placing either measure on the ballot. So in that context, I will now turn it over to my team members to move through this presentation. Thank you.
So one of my favorite things that came up in our work over the last couple of weeks, the four of us, as we put this presentation together, was something Melinda Morell said, our finance and administration director. She said, our budget's like a puzzle, and each piece plays a role. And you can't solve the puzzle with just one piece. You have to have all the pieces working together. And so we put together this graphic that we think illustrates exactly that point that Melinda was making. And each of the pieces has one of the recommendations that the task force put forth in their report that you heard from a couple weeks ago. So what we're here to talk about tonight is how multiple actions are going to be needed to address the ongoing challenges that we have, the operational funding needs that we have as an organization. And we're looking to you for direction on the two ballot measures, but also want to make the point that each piece matters and each piece makes an impact. And so as we think about the complexity of our budget, the complexity of the work that the task force completed, and the task force work that as they've thought about the future, we're really looking for direction from you, but also direction not only on the two ballot measure options, but these other pieces too. And we're saying, we're hoping that you'll help provide direction for actions to be taken this year, whether it's ballot measures or not, because we think it's a complicated puzzle and all the pieces matter, and even the dollar amounts vary dramatically, but they're all really important. And we do feel like time is of the essence, no matter what we decide to do, so that we can address the structural problem that the task force was tasked with working on. So it's a puzzle, and I want to thank Melinda for that analogy that led us to this really great illustration of it. I think now we'll move on to Melinda.
Okay, so you've heard this information before. We've had presentation from the FSP task force. And just to remind you of the specifics about their recommendations, three of the main ones anyway, there's multiple, obviously. So in 2024, to put on their ballot, they recommended the formation of a metropolitan park district. And their recommendation was a small 5-cent levy. And then, of course, if it was voted on in November, it would not take effect money-wise until 2026. 2025 would be used to set up the district. And then there would be an opportunity to ask for more money from voters later for Lake Point. 2027 is a recommendation to do the public safety property tax levy lid lift. So approving in 27 and taking effect in 28. And then in 28, the 0.1% public safety sales tax to get that approved. So those were the FSP recommendations. So why is there urgency with this? The sooner we tackle this funding need, then the better position we are for the future. So if we delay, then that just makes it more difficult and puts more pressure on our future operational needs. So in addition to reducing expenses and councilmanic options, we recommend that you proceed with one of the two ballot measures this year. These are necessary to move us closer to that financial sustainability that you guys have seen at various times, but most recently, obviously, through the FSP work. So what are the pros and cons with going to the voters now? So we all know this is a presidential election year and we have more voter turnout, so we hear from more people. And that's really important to not just hear from a small subset of our voting base. So we want to make sure we hear from as many people as we can. We want to build on all this momentum from all the outreach that we have done in the last 6 to 12 months. We've done so many surveys. We've done so much outreach through Love Where You Live. We've done outreach through the FSP task force. And we've heard from the community. The community says they support public safety. They support our parks. So that has been heard loud and clear, and they will pay for it. We've had the surveys. There was a ballot measure. A ballot measure is a significant piece of this puzzle, as was mentioned a minute ago. So that is a large revenue part of the puzzle that is very important. If the voters happen to say no, it gives us a little more time. You know, we don't know how the voters are going to react. If we get information now and they say no, then we can move to a better solution in the future and move to where we need to go. If we don't do anything now, we're not getting any information. As you guys know, if we form an MPD, those dollars are not available to 2026. So again, moving quickly, time is of the essence. That is why that is important. And then of course, if we do the public safety levy lid lift, we will get the dollars sooner. So we will get those in 2025, which obviously helps the budget. What are the negatives? So we don't have a lot of time to educate voters. So about 5 months, we'd need to really hit this hard and make sure that we are really educating the voters on what we are supporting. For the MPD, this would allow us more time to get clarity around the work that we're doing for Lake Point. A 2024 ballot measure will be a cost to the city. So it will cost somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000. And, you know, that's no matter when we do a ballot measure, it's going to cost us money. A ballot measure in 2024 could then impact the appeal of a future ballot measure. So we need to be thinking about the timing, kind of like the FSP had recommendations about the timing. So we need to make sure that we are giving that its due consideration about how do we want to time this out. And then again, a failure of the ballot measure could create a challenge in terms of next steps and how do we move forward successfully from that. So our first recommendation is Metropolitan Park District. And so here's a graph of some of the money options. The impact of our park and facility maintenance expenses in the millions is along the left-hand side. You see the millions going up to 3 million. And then along the bottom, you can see these are actual budget and forecasted dollars. The blue bars represent the actual or forecasted expenses for park and facility maintenance. The small blue line that's going across is inflation over the years, and it is my attempt at a projection for inflation. So do not take that with the, you know, do not put any weight into that. And then the smaller, shorter lines that go across the green, orange, and the purple are different levels of an MPD. So the green line is a 5-cent levy for MPD, and that would bring in about $350,000. The orange line is 20 cents. So a 20-cent levy bringing in 1.4 million in 2026, assuming it passes this fall. And then the purple is 35 cents. And that brings in 2.45 and up. The reason for those three lines is one is the 5 cents is what the FSP recommended. The 20 cents you can see covers the incremental increase in the costs. The red bars represent the incremental increase over the years of the cost for the parks maintenance. So the orange line would at least cover those costs. And then the purple would cover all of our costs. So we wanted to show what the dollar numbers would need to be to achieve those levels. Any questions on this chart before I move on? That's a lot of information.
Councilor Sassen.
I apologize. I feel like I should know the answer to this question, but the purple line the orange line, the green line. Is it the intention of the MPD to move all public park and facility into the MPD, or would it be park project specific?
In this version, it would be covering, we would use the dollars to cover those general fund expenses.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
with the future of, yeah, that if there was more money that we could use it distinctly for a project.
That was my understanding. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it was clear in the room. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, so second option, public safety. So this is for a public safety levy lid lift. This chart shows the costs, and this only is showing our contracted costs. It does not show all the operational costs for public safety, but it is specifically our amounts that we pay to King County for public safety. Again, the blue bars are showing you those costs from 2019 into the forecast to 2030. You can see the sharp rise due to inflation as that line for inflation is there. And then the red shows you that incremental increase, those red bars. And I've only shown two lines here. One is the recommendation from FSP, which was 16-cent levy lid lift. And so that is the green line. That is 16 cents. And then a 30-cent levy lid, that's just to show if you kind of doubled that number, you'd bring in 2.1 million. And that would come closer to covering the incremental increase that we think is happening. We don't know for sure what's happening. It could be a lot more than that. So that's just giving you two different visuals of bringing in different levels of money on that chart. Questions on this particular chart?
Questions?
So what does this cost homeowners? So using 821,000, which is the average 2024 home value for an MPD levy at the 5 cents, it would cost the homeowner $41 a year or $3.42 a month. At 20 cents, that would cost $164.20 a year or $13.68 a month. And at 35 cents, $287.35 a year and $23.95 per month. Our recommendation is the 20 cents. For public safety property tax levy, the 16 cents would be $131.36 to the homeowner per year and $10.95 per month. And 30 cents is $246.30 or $20.53 per month. And our recommendation is the 16 cents. And then I also want to really quick just point out that here is the information about property tax owner exemptions. And there's a lot of information. I do have a link to the King County portal, which guides people through applying for that exemption. It doesn't exempt them from all property taxes, but it would exempt them if they are eligible from increases that may happen, such as these increases. And you can see some of the guidelines. We've presented some of this to you before during the SWIM presentations. So, but there was a question.
Councilor Sassen?
If we could go back 2 slides, mostly again, for the benefit of our community in the room, because we had the opportunity to discuss this at our study session. But I think it's important for folks in the room to know what the pieces are of that blue bar going up so high, right? And so in terms of our police contract, it has a lot to do with the cost of liability coverage and training and body cameras and reimbursement. Is this correct? Right.
Just paying officers more to retain them and attract them.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and this doesn't include our other efforts such as RACER.
Right.
Okay.
That is true.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me to bringing that up. I should have brought that up. Okay.
So this brings us to our staff recommendations, and I'm just going to be mostly repeating what you've already heard tonight. But staff is recommending that you do move forward with one of two ballot measures, either the MPD at a 20-cent level. And I guess the reasoning behind that versus the 5-cent level the FSP task force recommended was because we felt that the 20 cents was more meaningful. There's a lot of work that goes into doing the ballot measure, and it would at least cover our increase in cost. The 5-cent just really, I mean, anything is something, but it just didn't seem like it was that meaningful. Or the public safety property tax levy lid lift at 16 cents, which is the same as the FSP task force recommendation. But again, we do not recommend moving forward with a ballot measure unless there is strong council support and a united front. Let's see, again, time is of the essence. We would like a decision tonight how to move forward. If you do choose to move forward with the ballot measure, we would like to have a draft ballot measure for you on June 10th.
Questions, comments? Councilor Lucis.
Quick comment. Thank you very much for putting us all together. I think it's always very helpful. And thank you also for calling out King County's tax exemption program. I know that that is a huge concern, as we don't want this to be an additional burden on our fixed income and low income residents within the community. You know, folks who may be on fixed income now may not be able to afford these increases. So bringing light to that and making sure that folks are aware of that and supporting folks and getting connected with that service, I think is really critical as a part of this discussion when we think about how not to unduly impact and affect our residents who can't afford it. So thank you for that.
Questions, comments? Councilor Sassen.
Me again. And again, for the room, could we just do a quick rundown of what are the other the other puzzle pieces that went in? I know we've had this in a study session, but again, we have guests and I want them to have a clear picture.
Yeah, some of these are a little harder to see. Some of them are a little dark, but they're all on this the slide. So you see the MPD measure and public safety ballot measure on there, but also the public safety sales tax at 0.1%, increasing the CAPE, expanding the CAPE to 4 other locations. So the photo enforcement cameras at 4 other locations. Increasing the first tier CAPE ticket cost. And I just want to preface this too, that Tobin, who is our engineer, so he'll be coming forward with more information about the CAPE program and some other recommendations that aren't here, that he mentioned to me after the FSP had done their work. But there are some other ideas around CAPE. So just wanted to let you know that there are going to be other options about ways to implement and put cameras in different places and whatnot. So more information to come on that. So just wanted to mention that. There's service reductions. And so the city, you know, has made a note to try to find $100,000 to help balance the budget. So we will take that on. There will be shifting some staffing to capital costs from general funds. We'll be doing rental fees for picnic shelters. We'll be doing LED streetlights. Did I miss anything? Oh, I thought that's what, how was that different? Same thing. I think that was a repeat, yes? I think that was a repeat.
Councilor Marshall.
Is it all right to do comments then at this point as our positions?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So, okay. Yeah, I can support strongly bringing either one of these measures to the public. I'm encouraged to see the renewed commitment to the cost cutting and I think service scrutiny. So that's great. That's going to be an effort that'll be concurrent with this, and we can tell the voters, yeah, we're taking a look at also the savings. But after the information that has been presented, I can understand the need for revenue. So then the question is, okay, which one? Again, I can go with either if that's the council's choice. And I can strongly commit it because I think we need it, because the great thing is ultimately the public is going to decide, and we're going to take our marching orders from them. The thing that sounds to me more plausible is a metropolitan park district. I think because we have a project like the idea of public access to the water and concurrent due diligence, exploration of the environmental remediation that's going to be necessary and everything involved with that. But we have all that tied up with a goal of public access to the water we can present to the public. It seems to me like that is in line with the tradition of walkways and waterways. It's something that's plausible, that the public is familiar with and supports and has a need for it. So I'd be in favor of that. I definitely see public safety as an ongoing urgent need. It seems that, you know, I would put that in a different category of that's a basic service. So this seems more like a special, the Metropolitan Parks District seems more like a special ask that the voters are entitled to make that decision on. And then also it may provide, again, not only the budgetary difference, but it may provide for the parks leverage for Lake Point.
Deputy Mayor.
I want to thank you for the really excellent presentation and the time and care that you've put together on this. I recognize that we're really in a tough financial position. I'm really on the fence, and nothing's really exciting to me on this. I'm just being honest. I think this is a tough one to put before the people. And I also recognize that we have a financial gap to fill. So this is, I'm just putting it out there. My hesitation is that I'm just thinking about when I went to the grocery store the other day, me going to fill my tank, how long my paycheck's lasting right now. It's not great. And I know that if I'm feeling it, our community is. Yes, we're putting something forward for the people to vote on. So I think that's good that the people are deciding if we do move forward with this. So there's that. I just wish there was something stronger that we could put forward for a vote that is assured that we're going to have a product that the people want. I like how Councilmember Marshall framed the MPD, and I think I've consistently leaned more towards MPD if we were to go forward. But I want to think about this a little bit more, even if it's to, we get a final draft on the 17th. That's my pace where I'm at, like thinking about what's most important and how much we're putting forward. But I think that Councilmember Marshall most eloquently phrased how I feel about the MPD, so I'm not going to belabor it, except in the long run, we are setting ourselves up for environmental work that we hope will be taking place in the near term. And but I feel with the public safety, which I do think is incredibly important, I would rather do that in an off election rather than this year. I almost feel that way for the MPD because I'd like us to have more time to prepare what we're proposing. But I'm just sharing with everyone here, I'm on the fence. Thank you.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
I have a quick question and then my thoughts. So our annual, I mean, we're talking about the the general fund and the street fund, basically. Those are the operational funds that we've been talking about, the FSP. What's the combined annual budget for that? I know I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. Because the general fund's like 11 million, something like that. Something in that vicinity.
I don't want to give a wrong number. I don't have it off the top
mean-
of my
I
head
mean,
either.
just Roughly, do we know what roughly is? I guess where I'm getting at is let's pretend it's just general fund because I am a little more familiar with that. I think that was roughly around somewhere between 10 and 12 million.
The 10 million is just for police costs, actually.
Okay, so then
It's much more.
it is much more than
Yes,
that.
it's much
Okay.
more than that.
What are
Yeah.
you thinking of biennial budget? I'm talking annual.
Oh, annual. Yeah, it's.
Anyway, let's pretend it's 10 million.
Is it
annual.
11? Is that what
I-
Rob's saying?
I have it, 2024 for the general fund is 16 million.
Oh, 16, okay.
And
So it is quite a bit more.
street fund is 1.6.
Okay, so that's small. So collectively, it's still under 20 million.
Thank you.
Okay, and I did my calculation based on 11. But this is even better. I mean, if you take, when I worked at the county, and I worked at King County for around 20 years, we routinely were asked, each department was asked to identify 5% cuts. And I know we're going into our budget process this fall. And, if it were, I think, yeah, so it'd be about $1 million is 5% if it's 20 million, which it's, just shy of that. So you're probably talking about 800,000, something like that, would be a 5%. And, that's comparable to the green level on the public safety and getting close to the yellow level on the other one. And as I've said in previous meetings, I guess I'm reluctant to support a ballot measure before we go through that exercise to identify what we might need to cut if we don't have a ballot measure. I feel like we need to go through that exercise, and we haven't for this coming biennium. So that's my concern with that. And then the MPD in particular, I would feel much more positive about it once we know, and we'll know much more in a year, where we're going, or if we're going anywhere with Lake Point. I feel like that would be, I would be all in if we had a clearer direction on that. I feel like without that, it feels premature and almost like a half measure somehow. And I think I would have a hard time personally articulating the rationale. I think the public safety one is clearer, the rationale, the escalation of our contract. I'm a little mystified when I think I heard, confirm what I heard, that we would not be including Racer in this if we went forward.
No, I'm just saying that Racer was not part of the numbers that I presented.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it becomes general fund dollars.
Okay, so yeah, it's 6 and 1/2 another. I think that makes a clearer case. But again, fundamentally, I want to see us go through the budget process before committing to either of these. And I feel like the public safety one we could do any year. I don't feel like that needs to be this year.
Councilor Lucis.
Just really quickly, I was going to make a similar point about, I think when it comes to the public safety one, I don't think that relies on it being an election year to pass. I think that has a far better chance of passing any other year, where an MPD, maybe not so much. And just to express sort of my opinion or position on this is I'm more in favor of the 5-cent MPD plan, I would say. Specifically the MPD option, just as Councilmember Marshall so eloquently talked about the importance of it. I think it creates a tool that can be used later for offsetting park costs. If it is Lake Point in the future, it can also be used as that, but I don't think it's just a Lake Point specific thing if we go forward in the future with a higher levy. I'm concerned when it comes to any amount higher than that, say that the recommended 20 cents, because of, as Deputy Mayor O'Kane mentioned, there is a feeling of constraint right now, and we're kind of late to the party when it comes to a higher amount. I mean, that's what we're discussing right now, is that there's not a lot of time left, and our chances of getting something through, I feel, might be higher with a lower amount than a higher amount. That is a concern for mine. And as was mentioned during the presentation, it's better to have something than nothing. And, based on what would be the most likely to pass, that's what I'm considering. I do think it is important to consider that it is task force recommended, just based on the amount of work they did in speaking with the public and hearing community feedback. And that, I think, is important when it comes to thinking and considering what is most likely to pass. And similar to that, I also think it's in line with what some of our surveys are saying when it comes to funding projects like that or like Lake Point. And so it could be useful, and I think that there's a chance of that passing. Again, I think it's important, even though it's a smaller amount, it sets up that tool that can be utilized later to pay for parks maintenance, and if things go well with Lake Point, to use it for that. And I think it's important that the public gets to decide this at the end of the day. But doing something now at least helps us know if it will pass, rather than risking it in the fourth quarter. That is a concern of mine, is when we get a little bit closer to the end, when the lines are crossing, I'd rather do something now rather than later, even if it is something a little bit smaller right now. There's just a lot to consider. And I think that based on our window of trying to gain support, it's a lighter lift to gain support for a smaller amount than a larger one with our short window. And I'm just trying to think right now about what's most feasible and what sets us up for the most success in the future. So that's my opinion on this. Thank you.
Okay, before I get to folks who have already spoken, I just want to see, Councilmember Culver, did you want to weigh in? Okay. All right, well then, I'll weigh in quickly and then we'll go back to Councilmember Sassen. Yeah, I really do appreciate the work that both the FSP and staff has put in all this. I know none of this was easy, and I really hate that we're getting to the place where we're having to really look at levies to cover kind of basic city services. It's uncomfortable, and it's not something anybody wants to do, but it's the position that the state's put us in because of the funding structures and the revenues they allow us to get. Speaking for myself, and this is kind of what I said 2 weeks ago, but I don't think that this is the year to go forward with either, frankly. I don't think an MPD without something tied to it like Lake Point is worth it. And I frankly think that the story to tell with an MPD without something attached to it is a difficult story to tell to voters. And it'd be hard, like Councilmember Shrubnik said, it'd be hard to articulate what we're doing there. I do think if we had to pick one or the other this year, I'd be more likely to lean towards a public safety one, especially given the previous, the increases we've seen in that contract over the last couple of years. All of that said, though, I don't think it's completely necessary for us to go this year. I think we could move up some of the cave installations and the increase in the tickets, the ticket costs for the traffic safety cameras. We have seen really impressive numbers with how those have been working to slow down drivers and increase safety. So I think it's worth it just from a public safety standpoint, but we also know that there is revenue tied to those. We also know that most of that revenue is tied to non-Kenmore residents who are driving through Kenmore. And it's a way for us to increase our revenue from non-Kenmore residents, which I think is something we struggle with as a city that doesn't have a large sales tax base. And, you know, these are folks that are putting wear and tear on our roads. So I would like to see us accelerate those, you know, as quickly as we can this year. And then circle back on the question of a levy in a year or two, when we've had more time to really work with the public on what it means. Because, you know, I agree with what we heard during public comment this morning. We need to have a bigger discussion around public safety and what that means to Kenmore and to the council and to the city, and to the residents. I want to make sure that, you know, when we're talking public safety, we're talking our crisis response, and we're talking RACER, and we're figuring out what we need, what level of investment we need to be making as a city in that for it to be successful and to hopefully take some of the burden off of our police force. But I just don't feel like this is the year. Yeah, Councilmember Sassen.
For the record, this is, I think, what I have taken home from the last, from the study sessions and from the FSP. We asked of the FSP to be experts, and what they brought to us during the study session was, to my eye, our largest proportion of expense is out of our control. And the largest piece of our revenue is out of our control. And so we're left to try and sort it out in the gap. In this past year, we have, with the FSP, set up a public expectation that we will address the issue of the coming shortfall. So I think there's a public expectation of action. Do the other puzzle pieces meet that expectation? I can't necessarily say. I believe that the Love Where You Live project revealed a public expectation of more. I feel like Lauren has said that many, many times, more, in terms of parks and recreation and services. And on the other hand, the Health and Human Services Survey really put a spotlight on our community's needs. And those two things are also on different ends of the scale. And the reality is that none of us wants to see more taxes. And yet, as our mayor has said, in our regressive tax system, we're in a bit of a pickle. Mayor Herbig did not say pickle. I want to echo what my colleague said in terms of public safety and being a, well, I guess I'm going to say this for myself. In my mind, the levy lid lift for public safety, I feel like public safety is a core value. So if we're talking about core or basic or enhanced services of the city, to my mind, public safety is a core service of a city, and the residents should expect that of the city without, whenever possible, without additional fees taxes being added to that. The MPD, the parks, I would consider that a basic service of the city. And I like the idea of an MPD being a tool for now and for the future. To quote one of our citizens, to support the deeply unsexy topic of parks maintenance. So I agree, it's not an easy sell to the public, but if we were to do something this calendar year, I would opt to go with the MPD at 20 cents as suggested, but I hear that I may be standing alone in that. So that's my 2 cents. That's my 20 cents.
Councilor Culver?
I have two suggestions that I'm going to put forward after we fully deliberate on these two, but I wanted to say in meantime, and now I'm forgetting what I was trying to say. I'm gonna yield. I'll just park this for now. Thank you.
Councilor Shrubnik?
Yeah, I realized I just forgot to say a couple things. One was my appreciation for everybody's work on this, the FSP, every single one of you. This, we're asking a lot here to give us to deliberate on, and I've really appreciated how you guys have stepped forward on that. And the other thing is that I didn't say was, I do recognize the need for doing one of these ballot measures. What I'm struggling with is I don't feel like we need to do it in 2024. I would rather see us accelerate some of the other measures that were in the FSP, and I fully expect and will support one of these in the future, probably in the near future. But I feel like I want more information from the budget and from our over the next year around Lake Point before making a decision about which way to go.
Councilor Marshall?
And on that, but on the opposite note, respectfully, I feel that the turnout this year, of course, or as we've been told in a presidential year, is going to be larger than in an off year. And so we're just going to get a better turnout and a better sense of what our voters and the people want. So I'd favor going this year on either.
Any further? Deputy Mayor?
I think one of the key recommendations is strong council support. And I'm not feeling it today. I have a little part of me that's like, I need more time personally. And I could potentially have strong support for, and I lean towards the MPD at this time in a couple more weeks, but I am really processing this. And I'm not sure that we can get there. I really do think the budget process will help us and more time to have dialed in, like, what's the cap on the MPD if we were to move forward? Would it be, whether it's 5 cents or 20 cents, will the cap be 75 cents? Which I think I don't know. And I don't know that we as a council can strongly get behind that right now. That's what I'm hearing. I hear the importance of bringing in the funds, and it's really, really tough right now. I also have heard from our community how saturated they are. Over the past 4 years, we raised just about every tax that we could. It was really a bit of a catch up from the restraint our previous councils have had in support of our community. So it's really tough to come before, to bring this to our voters right now. And I'm comfortable with an off year. At the same time, I don't feel like we have to close the door on making this decision tonight. That's how I feel. That's where, and I know we want to get moving on making if we were to move forward, staff needs time to prepare something, so that may not work. But that's where I'm at. I recognize the fiduciary needs for our city to function. And I want to make sure that we really feel grounded in what we're bringing to the people. I ran wanting an MPD in Lake Point, I said ballot measure this year. I would love to uphold that. I'm not feeling that today I could say that what we'd be bringing forward on a ballot measure is meeting the needs of our community. And that's really hard for me. And I think our community, it's hard. And what I know is no matter what we do, whether it's public safety or an MPD, along with the budget cuts, but either of those, it's one, we are serving our community no matter what. one of those things is going to support the other. And I heard that loud and clear from staff when we were talking about this. That I'm in a pause and leaning towards nothing right now. And that's, yeah, other than the proposed cuts that we're talking about, but I am open to having something to bind to a little bit more closely if council wants to have a little bit more time to coalesce or behind one of the options strongly. Thank you.
Councilmember Culver?
Yeah, jogged my memory. Thank you. Wanted to not bury the lead. I'm a no on ballot things this year. I'm glad for the work FS Financial Sustainability Task Force did. I love that you all put it in this presentation to help circulate it and help have a more rigorous community conversation, but largely in agreement with what we've heard. That said, and just dovetailing one thing Councilmember Sassen said about the sort of the expectation that we're going forward. I've said it before, but just to deliberate it, I think we set a clear expectation on Lake Points, and not having that, I think undermines that. But I'm very interested in the pivot. I love that concept. I've been very bullish on a lot of the councilmanic things. A lot of the other puzzle pieces, I think make a ton of sense. Cape among them, and a bunch of other good stuff. I also just want to say, like, I'm not preemptively committed to cuts. Like, I think the task force's work set us up on pretty sturdy footing. If we take the 5 cents off, like, that would be the only thing we would pause on for now, but like, there's a bunch of other measures that set us up in a good position long-term. So I feel bullish about that. I think that's going to get us on good footing. But yeah, I still have those two ideas, but I will park them for now. Thank you.
All right, so I don't want to keep going in circles here. I'm keeping an informal count, and right now I'm seeing 3 people saying not this year, 3 people saying MPD at different levels, and I'm missing somebody here, but I'm not seeing strong consensus to move forward this year. Yeah, City Manager.
Can I get clarification on Councilmember Culver? Can you summarize what, are you saying nothing this year? Is that what I heard you say?
I'm saying neither of these two. I have a couple of ideas, but I think they're far afield enough. I want to settle this fully before I introduce them, but I'm saying no to the 2 that were on the slideshow tonight.
Unless there are objections, I would propose that we table. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be strong consensus. I would propose that we table this until, not table it, but end this conversation for this year and come back to it at a later date. But if there's strong objections, we can continue the conversation. I just don't want us to be talking in circles. Deputy Mayor.
I would like to speak about it June 10th. Just close it on that date. I need more time. I lean towards no, but I'm not fixed. Thank you.
Would June 10th still give us time theoretically to get on the ballot if we changed our minds?
I mean, your statutory deadline to get on the ballot, I believe, is in August, if I'm not mistaken. 60 days, okay, even.
So an approval or resolution sending to King County elections, it would be on the election 60 days after passage of that resolution. And so you still have time in June,
Yes.
but King County elections gets very busy post that time.
Okay, so it sounds like late August would be kind of your absolute latest time to put something on the ballot in November.
That's true. I apologize. So the statute says 60 days, but King County elections has rules, so it might need to be even earlier than that. I'd have to come back.
I believe it's in August. That's what I remember. I don't have the code in front of me, but we don't recommend August. I mean, the sooner the better. When we did walkways and waterways, I believe I'm pretty sure it was May. It might have been June, but I'm pretty sure it was May. And that right there was a sprint to the finish line. So I think you need to be like if you're going to be putting something on the ballot, just to give enough time for both sides of the issue to form and for the city to do its education and outreach. You do need to put it in on June at the latest. That's why we need direction tonight, whether to bring you a resolution. So if you're not giving us direction to bring you a resolution tonight, then my recommendation is to not move forward.
Councilor Sassen and Councilmember Shrubnik.
I just had a question. We, as a city, would already have the council election on the 2025 ballot, so we would not have to pay the additional fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's pretty close to free if you put it on the city council ballot in November of odd years.
Councilor Shrubnik.
Yeah, I mean, I would, love more time to think about all of this too, and I'd be curious what Councilmember Culver's ideas are, but I'm feeling like we need to give staff direction. I mean, they've asked for that, and we've already delayed several weeks to think about this, and they have provided us with detailed information. So I don't feel like a change of one vote is going to get us to the unanimity that we would really need. So I don't want to, I'm reluctant to cut off, deliberation, but I don't think considering it one more time is going to get us to the unanimity that we would need.
Councilor Culver.
So I'll go ahead and pitch my ideas because yeah, totally understood. Y'all want direction tonight. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but in order to start the MPD clock, if we did an MPD for 0 cents and said potentially up to X, and then if in a few months we discover something's going to happen and we can ramp it up more, cool, then we've got that capacity to ramp it up at the appropriate time councilmanically. But we're not just going to folks with what I'm sensing and what I feel is sort of a muddled message since we're sort of in between. So I would throw that out for the council's decision. What about a 0 cents to start MPD with X amount in the future?
Now, I had a similar question for bond counsel on that idea. Yeah, you'd want to be able to set up what you can establish councilmanically in the ballot question. So the maximum is 75 cents. So you could say, hey, 50 cents is the maximum we would go to councilmanically, but we don't plan on levying anything in the first until we know more about Lake Point or what have you. You could do something like that. And council would, or the public would just have to trust you, right? That you're not going to levy anything. But you could send that message that you don't plan on levying anything in the first year or until you know more or whatever needs come later.
I'd vote for it. Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Councilor Lucis and then Councilor Shrubnik.
I had a similar idea as Councilmember Culver, but kind of where I stopped is it doesn't make sense to me to go forward with something that won't pay for itself, at least in the short term. And if we're, spending quite a bit of money on council for a bond measure and all the things behind that, at the very least, it should make back what the city is investing in that. And so then we get into that conversation of bank capacity, which I have my own hesitations about. But in terms of a 0 cent levy, it doesn't, to me, I feel like it should at least cover what the city's putting in on it.
Councilmember Shrubnik.
I actually really applaud your creativity, Councilmember Culver, and in this and other contexts recently. But I again feel like that would be a hard thing to describe to the public. And it also doesn't actually address the budget problem, or at least in the short term. It basically gets us quicker to getting revenue. It would get us, it would buy us a year closer to when we would need the revenue because we would already have this mechanism set up. But I don't feel like the risk of it going down as a ballot measure and the confusion that we would cause is worth that. I feel like we could shoulder that extra year. We could figure out a way to do it. And to just be crystal clear when we do go for the ballot measure.
Yeah, I agree with what Councilmember Shrubnik said. I thought it was a really interesting idea. I think it's almost impossible to sell to voters though. With the, you gotta trust us, we're not gonna, raise this unless something, I just think that's a really tough sell to the voters. Councilmember Culver?
Yeah, I'll just broadly say, I mean, yeah, the caveats are built in. It was a bit out of left field, but definitely agree with the sentiment of getting away from a somewhat speculative approach of let's put a bunch of chips in on something and see what comes out. I mean, I think 40K for a ballot measure, that's a reasonable sort of pull the lever, I guess, to keep using the gambling metaphors. But in general, I support that approach. So yeah, thank you.
All right, I am going to attempt to bring this conversation to some sort of close if possible. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think that it doesn't sound like there is broad consensus on what to do this year. It also sounds like our time to make that decision is fairly short, and while I respect the deputy mayors want to have more time to discuss, I would entertain a motion to set aside this conversation for the time being.
So moved.
All right, we got a motion from Councilmember Culver, second from Councilmember Shrubnik. Any discussion? The clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to set aside this conversation for the time being, Councilmember Culver,
Yes.
Councilmember Lutsis,
Yes.
Councilmember Shrubnik,
Yes.
Councilmember Sassen. That's a yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Kane,
No.
Councilmember Marshall,
No.
Mayor Herbig.
Yes.
With 5 yeses and 2 noes, the noes have it. The motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate the work. Staff report?
Nothing, Your Honor. I just want to thank this team of people that did this awesome work. They really came together and it's really great. I need to leave town more often because it's just was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing work. Council member reports and comments. Councilmember Culver.
Wacky idea. Sorry to bring it back up. A ballot advisory vote on going big on solar. It does not commit the taxpayer anything. If it passes by 85%, we can continue. We can consider a bond measure or something in the future and see where that might go. But I think that would pump up the presidential turnout, and I think there's a bright future in the green economy. So that was idea number 2. That's all I got. Thank you.
Councilor Marshall.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Councilor Sassen.
I just want to thank folks who participated in the Lunch and Learn on Housing, and there is a middle housing event here at City Hall this coming Wednesday at 6.
Councilor Shrubnik.
Yeah, after several meetings last week of the Regional Policy Committee, it finally passed the Crisis Care Center Levy Implementation Plan. There was lots of back and forth and lots of small amendments, and it's finally moving forward. That's a huge success because we really need those crisis care centers built, and they need to be built all over, not just in the North End where we already will have one. So this is a huge victory.
Councilmember Lutsis.
Yes, just a quick update on ETP, East Side Transportation Partnership. The Bus Rapid Transit, BRT, is coming in 2028 to connect Kenmore with the one light rail based off most recent estimates. Of course, that could change. And then an update from the state level, the state legislature is looking at a near implementation of creating a pay by mile tax for driving with the increase in electric vehicle use and the no longer I guess sufficiency of the gas tax. So those are all the things I have to update on.
Deputy Mayor.
I just want to make sure I adequately thanked staff for their presentation today, because I don't know that I did that. I recognize the bind that we're in, and thank you. We'll see what happens. You know, we tabled it for now, so I do hope we can get a ballot measure. Well, it's tough. Anyway, thank you is all I want to say.
Not a lot to report. I am actually proud to report that I was appointed by the governor to the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission. So first meeting coming up in July. Looking forward to that. It's kind of fun because the executive director is a woman. She was the lobbyist for them when I was working legislature. And I worked with her really closely on the distracted driving bill years ago when Representative Farrell was working on that. So very excited to work on that work because it is something that's very close to my heart. Nothing more to come before us. We are adjourned.